James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, well, the current Home Secretary for a few more weeks, was doing the morning rounds today and had one of his usual car crash interviews. In order to claw back some Reform voters, Sunak decided off the cuff to announce a new voluntary/mandatory national service. I'm not quite sure how you can have voluntary and mandatory at the same time, but I'm sure there's a plan for it. During the interview, he confirmed that nobody would be going to prison if they refused to do their mandatory/voluntary national service. I'm not quite sure how it's all being funded. As Laura Kuenssberg pointed out, the money's already been spent elsewhere, and so they're trying to spend it twice. And instead of using the platform to highlight their achievements and what their goals are for the next parliament should they get re-elected, instead it's taken up with this red meat nonsense. Oh, and during the interview he also said the quiet bit out loud and admitted that it's just there to get some votes back. Enjoy.
A couple of yes/no questions. What happens if someone says, I don't want to do it? Do they go straight to jail?
No, there's going to be no criminal sanction for this. No one's going to jail over this.
Are people going to get paid for this if they do the volunteering or the civil option rather than the military option?
So the military option will come with a salary because it is longer and therefore by extension. The other elements of it won't be. And and that is very much, well, that's very much in keeping. So I was in the reserve forces, as you know. The military reserve forces are paid. For example, Special Constabulary are not. St John's Ambulance people are not. So that mix is actually quite in keeping with the structures that we already have.
Yeah, but honestly, that's your first problem, isn't it? Are you going to get 18-year-olds
It's not been a problem so far.
Sign up for a weekend a month for nothing?
Yeah, because actually what we've seen, as I say, the military reserve forces are paid. What we're looking to do, first and foremost, no one is going to be compelled to do the military element. So whilst it is compulsory,
no, but some
the military
will do. You're hoping that some will do.
Some will do.
And my point is the military won't like it.
No, and of course, by nature, the people doing the military element will have volunteered to do the military version of it. So they will be motivated to join the military. They will have the opportunity to spend a year with the armed forces. And then, of course, we suspect that many of them will want to either go into the regular forces or, as I have done, have many decades.
No, but you're telling me why they might want to do it. What I'm asking you about is a military which can't actually recruit actual soldiers who are going to make it a career. That's what they really need. And now you're telling them, oh, by the way, you've got to look after some kids for a year who aren't going to stay.
Well, what we are going to see is that people going to the military bit of this will have volunteered to do so. They will be motivated. They will.
You're telling me the same thing again?
Yeah, I know.
This is really about getting the attention of people who say they're going to vote Reform, to whom this would appeal, isn't it?
What this is about is
it's politics.
Well, I'm a politician, so you shouldn't be completely surprised that that I'm involved in politics. But the point is, this is politics.
Oh, good. I'm glad a politician who says it's political, who's ready to admit.
No, but politics is how we deal with really serious issues, and this is about dealing with what we know to be the case, which is social fragmentation. Too many young people live in a kind of a bubble within their own communities. They don't mix with people of different religions. They don't mix with different viewpoints.
Okay. Do you think that this will help you gain the attention of those Reform voting the electors in, for example, the Red Wall constituencies?
So what we are motivated by is making sure that we have a cohesive society. Now, of course, look, Trevor, this is an election.
Okay.
So, of course, at an election, you come up with new ideas, and you come up with ideas that we hope will attract votes to us. There's nothing illegitimate about that.
You say it's fully funded, but you've said overnight that it will be funded by cracking down on tax avoidance, which Conservatives and other people have been saying. You've been trying to do that for 14 years, and it rarely has the...
No, we have been.
Well, it rarely has the impact that is hoped for.
So independent projections, not our figures, external figures, assess that we will be able to capture about £6 billion, 1 billion of which will be set aside for this.
Well, here's my wonder why you haven't been getting that over the last few years.
No, we have. So we have been much better than the Labour Party ever were cracking down on tax avoidance.
But the other part of the money will come from what's called the Shared Prosperity
Yes.
Fund. And that was money that was allocated to be spent around the country, often in places where there's deprivation, often where there's a dire need for things to improve. And you're taking money from that to put it somewhere else.
No, we're extending it because it was going to come to an end. We're extending it by 3 years.
But you're spending it on something else.
But we are spending it in those places. So this money will be spent across the country. So that levelling up impact of the Shared Prosperity Fund will continue. We're investing not just in places, but in people in those places.
You can't spend
We're
money
investing in
twice.
communities.
You've made a decision, and it may be the right decision, it may be the wrong decision, but you were spending it in a certain way on town centres around the country, and it might be spent in those same geographical locations, but it's being spent on something different.
So it was earmarked to finish. We're extending it. So what we're looking to do is we are continuing our commitment to levelling up. And as well as investing in places, we're investing in people in those places. So
Volunteering isn't volunteering if it's mandatory. I mean, it's a bit like forcing people to, if you're forcing teenagers to do something, they don't have a choice. Are you really comfortable as a conservative who's meant to believe in, liberal values, personal choice? You're forcing teenagers to do something.
We force people to do things all the time. We force 16-year-olds who, as a society, for example, we recognise are not fully formed and they still require education. So the decision was made that they remain in education or training. So we force teenagers to be educated.
The Tories' election strategy has got off to a bit of a rocky start, and by the looks of it, it's not going to get any better. But in a few weeks' time, at least there might be a chance that this, in the video that's on screen now, won't happen again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.